Michael, they know everyone can see it. They know everyone's unhappy about gas prices. They know everyone can see the president is not a fully functional adult.
Nope.
And yet they march on. And I don't think these are the type of people who are just going to hand back power. They're not going to shrug their shoulders and say, "Oh, well, we're going to lose, no big deal." And I'll be honest, all that makes me nervous.
I don't think they know that at all because there's an enormous percentage of the population that does not view data independently, that will literally tell you with a straight face to this day that Kyle Rittenhouse on January 6th went and shot a bunch of black people. They will repeat exactly what the people on their screens tell them. So to have any kind of independent assessment, as you or I or some of my friends might have, that's not how their thought processes work. So they will tell you, and the other argument people will tell you with a straight face, I'm sure you've seen this with Twitter, that Biden can't be senile and incontinent because it is in fact Trump who is senile and incontinent. And it's a seesaw, so if one is, the other by definition isn't. So you're not dealing with a population that views data in the same way that you and I would view it.
Did Trump break a bunch of people, or were they already broken and he simply revealed them to be so?
Let's look at Jonah Goldberg. I mean, that's the textbook example, right? The guy wrote Liberal Fascism, which was an historical analysis of the similarities between progressivism and Mussolini fascism and Hitler-style fascism. And now in 2021, all of a sudden, he's come to the realization that Fox has an element of propaganda to it, something which it has done from the beginning, something which Fox doesn't even pretend to the contrary. His definition of propaganda is simply having a bias in terms of how they cover the news, something which every news organization has, from the New York Times to Fox, Mother Jones, OAN, or so on and so forth. So when you see people like this, it is hilarious to watch their antics as they say things that 2 seconds ago or 5 years ago, they would have had complete opposite things, which is something, of course, they correctly accuse Trump of doing, that he'll say one thing one day, the next the other day. So it's really demonstrated how feckless the master class in Washington really is.
Michael, I'm going to play you a little clip of Joe Biden mocking medical freedom. I'm sure you've already seen it, but in case the audience hasn't, here's the President of the United States of America.
And so everybody talks about freedom and not to have a shot or have a test. Well, guess what? So how about patriotism? How about making sure that you're vaccinated so you do not spread the disease to anybody else? What about that? What's the big deal?
So first of all,
vaccinated people spread coronavirus.
Yeah, and it's also very interesting that he's in front of that green screen, and a very bad green screen. It looks like a green screen, at least. I'm surprised that the White House doesn't have, at least at this level, like deep fakes, where Joe Biden is somehow surrounded by Teddy Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson, and all the other great presidents on Mount Rushmore. They will say what they need to say in order to get the result that they want, and because a virus is mutating, because the virus in effect has a mind of its own, at a certain point there's only so much people can do. Developing a vaccine against measles, people still get measles in isolated incidents, something like that. So they have to present their argument that they're keeping the population safe, but they know that this is a lie because there's only so much that they can do against a worldwide pandemic. So as a result, they have to create an outgroup. It's somebody's fault, just like, as you bring up sometimes, back in the Soviet Union, it was the wreckers' fault. It wasn't that our economic system is wrong, it's that people are sabotaging it. So their argument always is, if everyone does what we want, then it would work. And since inevitably some people aren't doing what we want, therefore it's their fault that what we want isn't working.
What percentage of the American population agrees with what he said right there? What percentage of the American population hears words like medical freedom and they sneer at it as if it's something for cavemen somewhere?
But I think what you're misunderstanding is it's not a numbers issue. I can't give you a number because it's one mind in many persons. If this had been a right-wing country, they would be repeating right-wing platitudes with the same sneer and blank look on their face. So it's not about persuading the masses. They're ballast. They don't really matter one way or another. It's just getting control of the microphone or the megaphone and having enough of the thought leaders agree with you. And then everyone else is just going to jump on the bandwagon, just like with team sports.
Okay, so what's the COVID plan from a Biden perspective? They campaigned on beating it. They're not going to beat it, as you pointed out. It's a virus. It's going to be here forever. It's always good. It's going to be mutating 100 years from now. It's here. They can't beat it. Okay, what's the plan?
The plan is to exploit what is going on to get as much profit as possible for their corporate donors, specifically Big Pharma, and to use this as an excuse to increase authoritarianism and as a backdoor to do things like having digital currency and having control of, or at least surveillance, then control later, of everyone's movements and having them be tracked. So this gives them a great excuse in order to do things that they had wanted to do anyway.
Nancy Pelosi came out today and said something. I thought it was interesting coming from her mouth. I want your take on it. Here's what she said.
The fact is that there is an attitude of lawlessness in our country that springs from I don't know where. Maybe you do.
Yeah, so she clearly had read the Anarchist Handbook. I'm doing my part in order to spread this attitude of lawlessness because there's absolutely no reason for anyone to follow any law that goes against human rights and your own rights as an American. So these laws have no validity. There's absolutely no reason to respect a law, for example, that would forbid you from serving food to someone who's peaceful. There's no law forbidding you that's binding from opening your gym and letting people work. So, and not to mention last year, a huge percentage of the country were allowed to loot and burn down cities and have no consequences for their actions. And the only person who really was made a big case out of was the one who was defending himself and property against the lawless mob, which the police either allowed or encouraged.
Hey, thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.